This is sentence number 1 on the handout. Thinking like a Roman, we're going to read the entire sentence. Quod est fames, filios et filias regi, terrae servi mandant. Now I'm going to look at the vocabulary list. As I quickly scan the vocabulary list, I notice that there are 2 verbs, mandare and the verb to be. 2 verbs means that I must have 2 parts to the sentence. Here is the verb mandare and here is the verb to be. The comma that comes after fames is a good place to make the division of this sentence into 2 pieces. Quod is a conjunction, and it's beginning the sentence here. It also always begins a new idea, and usually is followed by a comma, and so that's why I've made the division there. The rest of the sentence will start at filios and go all the way to the end. Because I have those brackets, I know that I have to keep those words together that are inside the brackets. Let's take a look at the vocabulary that's in the small set of brackets, quod est fames. As I said, quod means because. Fames, when I examine the form, looks exactly like the nominative form on the vocabulary list. I will make it the subject. When I translate the words as because famine is, I'm left thinking that it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I need to remember what are different ways to translate the verb est or is. And I recall that I can say there is as a translation for est. And that makes sense in the sentence because there is a famine. Now I'm going to look at the rest of the sentence. Filios, from the word filios filii, which is second declension masculine, ends with os, which makes it accusative, which means it is a direct object and has to be used after the verb. Filias is from philia, which is a first declension feminine noun. The as makes it accusative, which means it has to be a direct object. Filios and filias, of course, stay together because of the and between them. Regi is from rex regis, which is a third declension masculine noun. When I look at my pink chart on the third declension masculine feminine column, I find the letter I at the dative spot. That means that this is my indirect object, or I can even say to the king. Terrae ends with ae. When I look at the vocabulary list, I see it is a first declension feminine noun. Ae can be a lot of different things. It can be genitive, singular. It can be dative, singular. And it can be nominative, plural. Is land the subject of my sentence? It could be because mandant, the verb, is plural and ends with nt. Mandant means to entrust. That's like to give something to somebody and trust them that they're going to take care of it, to entrust them with it. So lands don't generally entrust people with things. So for that reason, I'm going to believe that it is not the subject. I already have found an indirect object in the dative singular, so I'm not going to make it another indirect object. This is just the genitive singular. I'll have to decide if it should be the king of the land or the servant of the land. I can decide that when I'm translating. Serwi is the word servus servi and is second declension masculine. The I can be genitive singular or nominative plural. I don't see the word and between terai and serwi, so if terai is genitive singular, and if serwi were going to be genitive singular, there'd be the word and between them. But it's not there, so that means that serwi is the plural subject. So when I start my sentence, I'm going to start with the servants as the subject, and then I'm going to go to the verb, entrusted, and then I'm going to say what they entrusted, which is the direct object, and then I'm going to say who they entrusted it to, that would be the king, and then I can decide if it's the king of the land or the servants of the land, and that's up to you to decide. And then I'm going to move from there to this part of the sentence, quod est fames, because there is a famine. Then I can put that either at the very beginning or the very end of the sentence. Now let's look at sentence number 2. Regina ab urba Roma navigat, et apidum in littora Africae aedificat. Again, when I think like a Roman, I'm going to look at my vocabulary list. And I notice that I have 2 prepositions on the vocabulary list, ab and in. That means I have 2 prepositional phrases in the sentence. So I want to mark off where those prepositional phrases are. One prepositional phrase starts with ab and has to end at the first ablative case noun after ab. Erps is the word urbe. This is a third declension feminine noun, and I see that in my sentence it ends with e, which is an ablative ending. So that's where I'm going to end that prepositional phrase. The next prepositional phrase begins with in, which must also be followed by the ablative case. Litus, litoris, is a neuter third declension noun, and so the form that it's in when it ends with e makes that ablative. So that's where that prepositional phrase ends. When I look at my vocabulary list, I notice that there are 2 verbs. Navigat is a verb, sailed, and so is aedificavit, built. So that means that I have 2 parts to the sentence. And I have to divide it in half. I see the word and, that's et. Et is a conjunction between one verb and the other verb, and there's a lot of stuff in between. So to me that means that that's where I should divide the sentence in half. When I divide the sentence in half, I put both of the different halves into brackets, and that means that the words that are in the brackets have to stay together. So let's look at the first set of brackets. Regina ab urba Roma navigat. So my verb needs somebody to do it, and I have two nouns that aren't in the prepositional phrase, Regina and Roma. Regina is the first declension noun that means queen. It ends with the letter A, so that means it could be the subject, or if I look at the first declension column, the A can also be ablative. But Regina doesn't come after a preposition, so I'm going to make it the subject in the nominative case. I notice that Roma, which is also a first declension feminine noun, also ends with A, so it could be the subject too, but it doesn't make sense to say that Rome sailed from the city. And Rome does come after the preposition. So I think I'm going to make Rome actually be ablative and be the name of the city. So when I translate this, I'm going to translate it beginning with the subject Regina, and then I'm going to go to my verb, and then I'm going to add in ab urba, and then the name of the urba, which is Roma. So that's the first part of the sentence. Then I'm going to look at the second part. Et oppidum in littora Africae aedificat. When I look at the word oppidum on the vocabulary list, I see that it is from second declension and is neuter. The is the nominative form, because it looks like the nominative form on the vocabulary list. But when I look at the second declension neuter column on my pink chart, I see that for a second declension neuter noun, this could be not only in the nominative case, but also the accusative case, which means it could be my subject or my direct object. A town built. Usually, a town could build something, but if I look at the sentence, there is nothing else for it to build. Like, I don't have another noun that is in the accusative case. The only other noun I have is Africa, and it's not in an accusative ending. It's from first declension and is feminine, but it ends with AE, and that's not an accusative ending. So this tells me that the town has to be the direct object, because if I make it the subject, then there isn't a direct object, and I need to have one because the town would need to build something. So what do I do when I don't have a nominative case noun in the sentence? What I'm going to do is use the end of my verb as the subject. I can make it he, she, or it because it ends with T. A lot of times when you have a sentence like this where there are two different parts to it, then the second verb either refers to he, she, or it. That's really using the same subject as the first sentence is. So Regina, or she, is the subject of built. She built a town. That makes sense. And then I know where she built it, on the coast. And then I've got Africa here, and it makes sense to just say of Africa, so making that genitive. Those are notes on the first two sentences of the 5. So that will help you get started, and then you can look at another video for notes on the other two sentences.